Okay, so we're going to be talking about health, and I know that this is a sensitive issue. I am not a health expert, but I am going to be reading here from Christ Object Lessons, chapter 25. There's a subcategory, right? The chapter is divided into smaller sections. There's one on health, the idea of health being a gift from God, and that's where I'm going to be focusing on. Okay, so if you're watching online and if you want to share, feel free to do so. If you're on the Wisdom app and you want to see me, and there's also a link to some notes of at least what I'm going to be reading from. It's on, if you go on Facebook and you search for Pr.Marlon, that's Pr.Marlon. I have a page on Facebook, and then you can read on there. You can see me, and you can see there's a link on the description for the book, Christ Object Lessons, chapter 25, the portion that I'm going to be reading from. If you're listening to this in the podcast, it's going to be posted later on. There will also be a blog post with it, and I post the whole text there that I'm going to be reading from. That way, you can follow along, and you're going to see that I'm quoting, and then I add my own thoughts. And this is sort of what we're doing. It's kind of like a book club, I guess. And the reason for this, there's several. One of them is I try to read this portion. Usually around January, I come back and I read this chapter on the talents, because I find that the author breaks down different aspects of life and how we can put it to the best use. And I like that. I like that challenge personally. I like to live my life intentionally, and I find that to be a good challenge for myself. So I've been sharing that with some friends, and they say like, "Oh yeah, I'll get to it sometime," and I'd love to, but they never do. And then this way, I figured it's easier for you to join me. You don't have to sit down, get the book, and read it. You can listen to it. You can join in and hopefully get some benefits from this. So I'm going to also let you know ahead of time that this is something that I take as a personal challenge. I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but I do find it helpful. I think wherever we are in our journey, to be challenged to take that one step towards being better, or one step towards a goal, or just being challenged. What can I do better in my life? And I appreciate that. So I'm doing this, but I don't want anybody to just feel judged, or to feel even, how can I say that this is sort of a works-based approach to salvation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the mission, about living your life. If you attend the church here where I pastor at Cloverdale Seventh-day Adventist Church in Boise, Idaho, we've been doing this series on a call to adventure, and I think that this is part of it, this call to be the best version of myself, for the benefit of those around me, for the honor and glory of God. And then also I find that I benefit from challenging myself in this way. So this is just a brief introduction. So it's sort of like a book club for the book Christ Object Lessons, chapter 25, and we're going to be tackling the portion on health. It's a shorter portion, so I think that this will be easier to talk about, and just a quicker video and podcast and message. And once again, if you're on the Wisdom app and you follow me, I always follow back those who follow me. So just, I'd love for you to follow me, and then you can click on the social media and give me some feedback. I value the feedback. Thank you for those who comment on the videos here on Facebook Live. And I am going to try to post this also to YouTube. Last time I ran out of memory on my camera and I wasn't able to post it, but this time I think I have it all set up. So I think we're ready to jump right into it. And get started. And so let's do it. We're looking here at health. So health is a blessing. I'm quoting from the book. Oh yeah, one more thing too. If you've been joining me for this, you already know this, but if it's your first time, Christ Object Lessons was published in the year 1900. So it's not the newest book, and the English is a little bit old, but I find that the wisdom here is great. And once again, you don't have to agree with everything. If you disagree, talk to me. The idea is to get a conversation going. The idea is to challenge you a little bit, to come out of your comfort zone. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and your views on this. So let's jump into it. Okay, I think I got it all going. So health is a blessing of which few appreciate the value. I have this highlighted here, and I think it's so interesting we don't really appreciate our health until it's gone, right? Until you get sick, and then you're like, oh, there's all these things that I took for granted. And I realized that when I got COVID back in 2020, because it was the cool thing to do. Despite all the precautions, I still ended up getting it, and I was miserable for about 10 days. And while I was down, it really got me thinking, like, oh, there's so many things I wish I could do, but I can't because I'm sick. And the thing is, when I am able to do those things, do I appreciate them, right? And chances are I don't. So I've been trying to be a lot more intentional. I think COVID helped me in that, to just make the most out of the good health that I have while I have it. So I'm just going back here to the first sentence again. Health is a blessing of which few people appreciate the value. Yet, upon it, the efficiency of our mental and physical powers largely depends. So here's the thing, right? Your physical health will impact your mental and, of course, your physical powers. So you're gonna be able to do more when you're healthy, and you're gonna do less when you're sick. Very basic, very straightforward. Keep this in mind as we go throughout the rest of this portion of this chapter. So listen to this. I like this. This next line here says, our impulses and passions have their seat in the body, and they must be kept in the best condition physically and under the most spiritual influences in order that our talents may be put to the highest use. So the idea, we all have our impulses, we all have our passions, we have these things that we struggle with. And the idea is the healthier our body is, the more control we have over our impulses, over our passions, the better we can be in control of our body as opposed to a victim of our impulses and passions. So I'm not saying that impulses and passions are wrong. I'm just saying you should have them under control, and then decide, do I want to act on this or not? Sometimes the answer is yes, you should act on this. Sometimes the answer is no, you should not act on this. So being in control is definitely a good option, and good physical health is important for you to remain in control in order that you can put your talents, right? All these things that God gives us, and we've been talking about them on this series. And if you missed them, my blog, Pr.Marlon, M-A-R-L-O-N, so Pr.Marlon.com. That's my blog. I have notes on this series in case you missed the previous ones. This is actually part 8, I believe. And there's all these different things that we can put to work for the kingdom of God, for the blessings of those around us. And also, I think it causes us to live a more intentional, meaningful life. So there's a whole series on there, and I have these short sections. So this one is on health. But, all of them can be put to better use, to highest use, when you are at your best physical health. So with this in mind, going here to the next paragraph, it says, anything that lessens physical strength enfeebles the mind and makes it less capable of discriminating between right and wrong. And this is important. So anything that lessens your physical strength. So if you're choosing to eat poorly, to not get enough sleep, to not exercise, these things are making also your mind weaker. So it's not just your body. You can't just sit around and read all day and not do anything physical, thinking that it's going to be okay, your mind will be fine. No, your physical body affects your mind. It's great to read, it's great to learn, but if you're more active, and if you're taking, you're eating well, and you're resting, and you're exercising, your mind will be able to do even greater things. So your poor physical health enfeebles the mind, makes it less capable of discriminating between right and wrong. You're going to find yourself not sure, struggling. And I mean, I struggle on a regular basis. So if I'm not healthy, it just makes that struggle even more challenging. We become less capable of choosing the good and have less strength of will to do that which we know to be right. So this is important, right? You want to make better choices. You want to live a better life. Being physically healthy helps that. It facilitates it. It doesn't guarantee it, right? I'm not saying every healthy person makes the best decisions possible, but I am saying that if you are healthier, it's easier for you to make right decisions. And I know that from personal experience. The health thing is something that I think this is timely because I need to get better at it. Ever since I moved here to Idaho, I've been sort of lagging in that. And when I was in Georgia, I was really on top of it. And once I started making better choices and exercising regularly and eating really well, it was easier to continue to make those choices. And when you're just having a bad day, or you're tired, or you're sick, or it's just easier to make poor choices, even knowing what the better food would be, even knowing what the better choice would be. It's just harder to make those choices. Anyway, these are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. And if you want to leave a comment, I'm trying to keep an eye on the comments here this time. And once again, if you're on the Wisdom app, you can follow me, some of the social media links on there. And I think I put one for my blog on there, and you can go on there. And then from there, I think there should be a link to the Facebook, and then you can watch the live stream and interact with me there. So back to the book. The misuse of our physical powers shortens the period of time in which our lives can be used for the glory of God. Now, once again, the author here is very theocentric, right? It's really thinking about God and spiritual things, and I appreciate that. And I find that even if you're not there in your life yet, maybe you're still exploring God, you're discovering God, you're kind of figuring out if God exists or not, if you believe in God or not, that's fine. I think you can still benefit from these principles. But if you're already there and you want to live for God, so think about it this way, right? The misuse of our physical powers shortens the period of time by which our lives can be used for the glory of God. When I don't take care of my health, I am shortening the time that God can use me to bless others. So let's keep going here. And it unfits us to accomplish the work God has given us to do by allowing ourselves to form wrong habits. So I love the way that the author mentions this. We allow ourselves to form wrong habits. And by keeping late hours, by gratifying appetite at the expense of health, we lay the foundations for feebleness. So when we allow ourselves to form wrong habits, when we keep late hours, when we gratify appetite at the expense of health, we lay the foundation for feebleness. So bad habits that you continue to engage on, staying up really late, when you gratify your appetite to the expense of health, it means when you're putting things into your body that you know they're not good for you, but you just love to do it. You are laying the foundation for feebleness. You're making yourself weaker. You're making yourself more susceptible. You're making your life more difficult. You're making it more difficult for yourself to do good things, to make good choices. And I'm not condemning anybody, but I'm saying here is, does this make sense to you? And are you willing to take this on as a challenge, right? And this is how I take it. I like this. It challenges me. So I don't mean it as a judgment on you. I don't even know who you are necessarily watching right now or at any point later on when you listen to this or watch the video. But I like this challenge of being careful with the habits that I'm forming, making sure I'm getting enough sleep at night, forcing myself to go to bed earlier, setting an alarm if I have to. Personally, I like to be in bed by 10 o'clock. So I have an alarm. I start shutting everything down, heading to bed, and trying to force myself to do that. It's not easy. I get it. And also, gratifying appetite at the expense of health. This is something that it's really important to keep an eye on. There's things that I love to eat, and I have to control it and eat a little bit less of it. But I think also not just food, but anything that's gonna be detrimental to your health that you enjoy doing. And if you do it too much, to the point that it hurts your health, it's a problem. So by neglecting, back to the book now, by neglecting physical exercise, by overworking mind or body, we unbalance the nervous system. So here's the idea, right? Let's say you do lots of physical exercise for work. If you're overdoing it, you're also hurting yourself, right? If you're overworking your mind, I know some of you who are listening here may be in graduate school or college or getting your doctorates, and it's just all that mind work. If you're neglecting the physical side of it because you're doing so much with your mind, that will also hurt you. It's also going to unbalance your physical well-being. So those who thus shorten their lives, I'm going back here to the book, those who thus shorten their lives unfit themselves for service by disregarding nature's laws. Let me do that again with proper punctuation, right? So here's a thought from the author, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Those who thus shorten their lives and unfit themselves for service by disregarding nature's laws are guilty of robbery towards God. Here's how I understand this. When you make these poor choices, You weaken your body by overworking, either physical or mentally. And you're not resting properly, you're not keeping your body your life is not balanced, you're hurting yourself. It says you are guilty of robbery towards God. This is interesting, right? God gave you life, God gives you health, God gives you gifts and talents and things that you can use to bless others around you and bring honor and glory to his name. And when you hurt your physical body, it says here, you're shortening your life and you're making yourself unfit for service. Because you're disregarding nature's laws, and you are robbing God of that life that could have been lived longer and given honor and glory to his name. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? And I love this next part that follows up, which I think helps add to this thought. It says, and they are robbing their fellow men also. The opportunity of blessing others, the very work for which God sent them into the world, has by their own course of action been cut short. And this should hit home with everybody. So this means that the people that you love, that are in your life, and this would include also your coworkers, classmates, neighbors, family members, your children, grandchildren, siblings, parents, nieces and nephews, people around you, they are robbed of the good that you could offer them when you don't take care of your life, and then your life is cut short. So, your grandkids will miss out on having grandma and grandpa around. Your neighbors and coworkers will miss out on having your positive influence and your cheerful attitude around them. People will hurt because you are removing yourself from life earlier than necessary by neglecting your health. Does that make sense to you? It does for me. This is something that really hits home. So for me, the idea, when I take care of my body, when I choose to eat the things that don't necessarily taste great, but I know that they're good for me, so I'm going to put them on my plate and I'm going to eat them. I'm thinking I want to be there for my grandkids. I want to see my kids grow up and be there to encourage them and to guide them and just to be a positive influence on their life. I enjoy helping people around me, and I want to make sure that they have the benefit of having me around to encourage them. And so this makes me more intentional about how I live my life, and it also puts my service towards others as a motivator to take care of myself. And this means also being able to say no when I have to, saying no when I need to take care of my health, and just having that balanced life, right? Not overworking, not overdoing it. Because yes, I helped a lot of people today, but then I get sick from it. Now I can't help anybody for several days while I recover. Or even worse, if you work yourself into an early death, what good was it? Yes, you did a lot of work, but couldn't you have done more if you had just have a more balanced approach and lived longer? Just things that I wonder about when I read this, and that's why I appreciate reading this and being challenged in this way. So let's see here. I lost my the opportunity to bless others. The very work for which God has sent them into the world by their own course of action has been cut short. Okay, next sentence. And they have unfitted themselves to do even that which in a briefer period of time might have been accomplished. The Lord holds us guilty when by our injurious habits we thus deprive the world of good. I love this. This means that you are important, you matter, God has a plan for your life, and when you cut your life short by injurious habits, right? You have these habits that are just hurting you. You are depriving the world of good. The world needs you because you can be a force for good, a blessing for others. Don't deprive the world of your presence and your influence by taking poor care of your health. Take good care of your health because it'll benefit people around you. Take good care of your health because people will receive a blessing from that. So it's not just about you, it's about the good that you can do as you are healthier, as you are around longer. And I love this because for me, when the responsibility shifts from me to those around me, it motivates me more. It's easier for me to deprive myself of something. For example, I could just take poor care of my health and be like, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt anybody else. It's just me. I don't mind hurting me, I guess, is a way of thinking of it. But if by doing that I'm depriving somebody else, especially my children, my wife, people that I love, of the good that I could do for them, suddenly I'm more motivated to take better care of myself because it'll benefit these people that I love. So I hope that this also works for you. The idea that the world needs you. So take good care of yourself so you can be around for a good long time to be able to help even more people or do even more good, because I think we can all agree there is a need for more good in the world. So next paragraph, and there's just a few more to go. Transgression of physical law is transgression of the moral law. So the idea here of physical law, it's not physics necessarily, but I think the laws of physical health. So right, how you take care of yourself. You need to eat right, exercise, rest. Those types of things. That kind of law. So transgression of the physical law is transgression of the moral law. For God is as truly the author of physical laws as He is the author of the moral law. His law is written with His own finger upon every nerve, every muscle, every faculty, which has been entrusted to humans, to men, women. And every misuse of any part of our organism is a violation of that law. So the author here has an interesting way of looking at this. You think of the Ten Commandments written by the finger of God in tablets of stone. And the author says God has also written a law of health in our body, right? In the organs, in the muscles. And as you break those laws, you take poor care of your body, you're breaking God's laws in essence. So to be a Christian, it's not just about the moral law, it's also about taking care, and I say being a Christian, but a follower of God, however you identify at this point. If you're seeking God, I would encourage you, and this author I think does a great job at pointing that out, to also look at your body and take good care of that as part of your service towards God and towards others. So all should have an intelligent knowledge of human frame, that they may keep their bodies in the condition necessary to do the work of the Lord. The physical life is to be carefully preserved and developed, that through humanity the divine nature may be revealed in its fullness. So there's this idea in Christianity of the Holy Spirit living in us, accepting Jesus into our heart, right? We have this language that we use. Have you accepted Jesus? So the idea here is, as you carefully preserve your physical health, that means that the divine nature, God working in you, can shine through you to a higher degree as you take good care of your health, right? It can be revealed in its fullness. So people will get to see God better when you take better care of your health. So I think this means anywhere you are in your health, as you get better, this improves and gets better. So the relation of the physical organisms to the spiritual life is one of the most important branches of education. Now I have to pause here real quick and tell you a little bit about myself. So I grew up in the church, studying the Bible, believing in it, and my parents also made sure to not just teach me Bible, but I was very aware early on that it's important for me to get sleep. It's important for me to eat my vegetables. It's important for me to avoid having too much sugar, right? Don't just eat a slice of cake for breakfast type of thing. So I appreciated that from my parents, because there was not only the spiritual side, but there was also this idea that I'm responsible for caring for my body. And I've benefited from that, all the way up until now in my life. I've at least been aware of what's good and what's harmful so that I can make better choices. And I don't always make the right choice, but when I make a wrong choice, at least I'm aware that I'm making a wrong choice, as opposed to just being ignorant and doing things without knowing that they're harming me. Usually, I'm aware. So I appreciate that so much, because even though I can make bad choices, I'm aware that I'm making a bad choice, and I appreciate that, because I think that helps me make better choices overall, at least having an awareness of that. So I think, for those of you who are parents, who have kids around, or even if you're just listening to this and you have people around you that you can influence, don't just share God. That's important. Share that by all means, but also share about, benefits, things that are beneficial to the health. That's a part of it. The gospel should be the whole person, every aspect of life, not just caring about the soul or the mind, or it's all in a package, right? It all happens in the body. So continuing here, I'm just going to read that sentence again and keep going for context. The relation of the physical organism to the spiritual life is one of the most important branches of education. It should receive careful attention in the home and in the school. All need to become acquainted with their physical structure and the laws that control human natural life. He who remains in willing ignorance of the laws of physical being and who violate them through ignorance is sinning against God. So I think that this is really important. I had not highlighted this before. I'm going to highlight it now. So he or she who remains in willing ignorance, and I know the author here says laws of physical being. Like I said, this was published in the year 1900. We would say health laws, right? So if you don't want to learn how to be healthier, and cover your ears and walk away and just don't want to look, don't want to read, if you're just refusing to learn, you're in willful ignorance. You're remaining in willful ignorance, right? You're making that decision to remain ignorant. If you're doing this, you are sinning against God, according to the author of this book. So the idea is God gives you opportunities to learn and to grow. It's one thing for you to do something in ignorance and you just didn't know better. It's another thing when someone tries to tell you about the benefits of, making certain changes in your life and you just disregard it, you ignore it. That's on a different scale now. Now you're willfully remaining ignorant, and the author here says that this is a sin against God when you're just rejecting information that could help you live a longer, better life and serve others. So all should place themselves in the best possible relation to life and health. Our habits should be brought under control of a mind that is itself under the control of God. So I love this idea, right? You get your body under the control of the mind, and the mind is under the control of God. And this is where you get the best possible, the healthiest outcome, the best possible life, the most meaningful life, the life that does the most good in the world. And it happens like this. Your habits are controlled by your mind, and your mind is controlled by God. So it's about submitting and being in control. Take control of your habits, of your body, of what you do, and then let God control your mind. And I love this. And we're almost done here. Last paragraph. And this is a quote from 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. And I believe this is in the King James. So it's going to be Old English. Know ye not, says the Apostle Paul, that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and yet ye are not your own, for ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. So the idea there is God paid the price for us, right? Jesus died on the cross. We belong to Him. The Holy Spirit inhabits our body, and the better care we take of it, the more we glorify God in our body, in the spirit, which all belong to God.